Well, good morning, everyone, and we will get started with our webinar on saving money when feeding your family. And we are recording this so that you know that this will be recorded and you'll be getting a copy of the recording later. So we're excited to have everyone here today. We are a smaller group, so feel free to turn on your cameras. You can unmute yourself at any time if you have any questions. And otherwise, put your questions in the chat is another option. So please enjoy our webinar today. And the question that we started with is, what is a tip for saving money on food? And Lisa says, don't shop hungry. Very good idea. I think one of my tips right now in saving money is bringing a lunch to work. Oftentimes I'll make a little bit more for supper or the night before, and then I'll take that for lunch the next day or the next week. Mary, how about you? Do you have a tip that you like?
Yeah, actually, one of the tips that I like that I'm going to talk about a little bit more later is when I do make the shopping list, making sure that it is in order, because that saves me time so I don't stray and grab different things as I'm going through the grocery store.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Well, let's get started. My name is Kelly Kunkel, and I'm here with Mary Schroeder, and we are extension educators in health and nutrition with the University of Minnesota's Extension. And we're here today to talk about saving money when feeding your family. So our objectives today, we're going to explore the top 10 ways to stretch your food dollar. We're going to learn ways to plan meals to save money for you and your family. And then we're going to highlight some resources that are available for saving money. You may have noticed that grocery prices are on the rise. I've been noticing that, Mary has been noticing that as we go to the store, we're seeing the prices increase. And in fact, in 2021, food at home prices are expected to increase between 2.5% to 3.5%. So that is pretty significant to our overall expenses. And in addition, going out food outside of the home. So going to food away from home prices are expected to rise between 3.5% to 4.5%. And school meals are also experiencing that. School food services finding that it's more expensive to feed children as well. So there's a lot of different reasons. There's a disruption in our distribution system. There's labor shortage. COVID was a huge factor in these prices increasing, and we are probably going to anticipate seeing those prices being higher for the next year or so. So how can we take this information and try to save money at the grocery store? Those are the things we're going to talk about today. MyPlate.gov is a wonderful resource that will provide you some information on just eating, healthy eating and active living for your family. And they also have some great saving tips for groceries. And so they have a new feature on their website called Shop Simple with My Plate. And it will, just using that QR code, you can find the farmers markets in your area. You can get recipes and a variety of different information. So here's an example of bananas. What are some things that you can do with bananas? But it's a great resource. But through all of this, through COVID, through our disruption in our food system and all of our schedules as well, there's a lot of stress. We need to acknowledge that there's a lot of stress. And when we're stressed, sometimes our bodies crave things that are higher in fat and higher in sugar. And MyPlate.gov can kind of lead us towards healthier eating and healthier food choices. And it explains why those choices are so important. So let's talk about what are the top 10 ways that you can save money at the store. Starting with number 10, we'll make it a countdown. Using leftovers, and somebody shared that was one of the things that they do, the planned overs or the leftovers. It's not a great deal if you let the leftovers sit in the refrigerator and spoil. So making sure that you use them and make it once, eat it twice, label what the leftover is. If you can't get to it in time in the refrigerator, put it in the freezer. And one of the resources that we will give you after our webinar today is a list of storage times and temperatures for freezing and canning from the University of freezing and refrigerating from the University of Minnesota Extension. And we hope that that's something that will be useful to you. And when in doubt, throw it out. If it's not good, don't eat it. Next is to consider store or generic brands. Often store or generic brands run on the same line as the brand name, and so it tastes the same. And brand loyalty can really be an expensive habit. Now, having said that, I am brand loyal to a certain type of peanut butter. And that's one of my favorite peanut butters. I've tried the store brands. I don't particularly think they're as good. And so what I do there is I just make sure that I watch for sales on that brand of peanut butter. And that can help you as well. Shop alone. Any of you that have shopped with friends or family know that they can really influence our food choices. And so if at all possible, shopping alone can help you to save money at the store. Read the label. We want to get the most nutrition bang for our buck. And so reading the label and knowing what you're getting is very helpful and to choosing healthier options. And a quick guide is to look at the daily values on your food label. And these food labels are portioned according to a serving size, or what would be an expected serving size. And so if it's the daily value, or DV, is 5% or less, it's low. And if it's 20% or more, it's high. So for example, in this frozen lasagna, the sodium amount is 35%. So this would be a product that would be higher in sodium. Know your store. And Mary talked a little bit about that's one of her favorite things is knowing the store. We usually shop about 1 or 2 grocery stores or stores. We don't usually go to a lot of stores. So knowing the layout of your store is so helpful because you can plan your list according to where things are at in the store. So you don't have to go back and forth in the store. Stores are designed so we make unplanned purchases. That's what they want us to spend our money. And so if we can make sure that we follow that line and follow our list, that helps a lot. I always think about where the milk is in relationship to the front door of the store. Is it right there? No, it's usually at the very back of the store, and it's not a straight line. And so you have to zigzag through the store. And as you're zigzagging through the store to get to that 1 gallon of milk that you want, you may have found all kinds of things that really look good, especially if you're hungry, that look so good to put in your cart. And so it becomes very easy to make those unplanned purchases and spend more at the store. Somebody mentioned this as well. Shop after you've had a snack or a meal. When you're grocery shopping and hungry, everything looks good. I walk into the store and smell that bakery bread and I immediately am hungry. So when you're hungry, when it looks good, you're going to find that you put more things into your cart. And then if you actually survive the whole shopping trip, as you're leaving and checking out, there might be a candy bar or a soda that looks so good to you. And don't you deserve a reward, especially since you're so hungry after going grocery shopping? So that might be something that ends up in your cart as well. Make a list and bring it along. I know I've made a list at home and I've left it there, and then I tried to remember from memory, but there are certainly a lot of different apps that you might want to consider to try to make a list. But if you can stick to your list if at all possible, you may need to make substitutes for some items if there's a better deal, but for the most part, planning ahead can really help you. Clip and use coupons, number 3, only for items that you need and use. It's not a great deal if it's a product that you aren't planning to use. So just remember that as you're clipping coupons. Also, sometimes, again, store brands are cheaper than the name brands, even with the coupon. So look at the different the price options. Check out newspaper ads, number 2, and special sales. I know that in my area, Tuesdays are the day that the paper comes with all of the sales flyers for the different grocery stores. So that's often the day I'll think about what I'm going to make for the next week so that I can plan it in my menu. They have those price leaders that are often very good that kind of entice me into the store. And then I'm going to look at what are some of the sale prices for all the different items. And I know one person talked about buying meat. I'll look at the meat sales and kind of plan what things I want to purchase. Okay, are we ready for the number one way to save money at the grocery store? Well, it's menu planning. Menu planning is the first step to healthy eating on a budget. And so those are the top 10 ways to save money. I'm going to turn it over to Mary, who's going to go into more detail about those top 10 ways.
Thanks, Kelly, for giving us that top 10 list. And I get the chance to kind of tell you a little bit more about some hints and tips within each of those 10 categories that we did already talk about. I'm going to begin with the menu planning because, as Kelly said, that's really kind of one of the main ways that you can really help to reduce your food costs. And even though it's one of the main ways to reduce your food costs, it's actually one of the things that the majority of people don't do on a regular basis. Just because it seems like it takes time and it can be daunting, and it's just something people don't take a lot of time to do, but it really does help. One of the things that I think happens is people, maybe go online now because there's so many different resources out there, and you see all these really fancy menu plans. It doesn't have to be a fancy menu plan. I have my menu plan on the right-hand side. All I do is I take a sheet of paper and I just write down what I plan to have for the week. As you will notice, I just do the main entrees. Some people like to put the side dishes, the fruits and the vegetables on there. But I pretty much know that when I serve, like I have chicken parmesan on there, which is like a breaded chicken. When I do that one, I typically serve broccoli with that. So you kind of have those things that you do in your life, that you have the things you like together. So I just find that typically works well. And then I just make sure I keep a nice variety of fruits, vegetables, and side dishes on hand to do that. Next slide. A good way to start out with the menu planning is just to start making a list of some of those favorite foods. I'd encourage you to have the whole family do that, and then you have a nice list to start with. Today, we're just kind of going to do a quick overview of menu planning, and we do have some recorded webinars of just menu planning. But again, this I find has really helped and saved me, because then it kind of gets you out of that rut of doing the same thing all the time. Next slide. This is something that I do when I do my menu planning, because the more you can try and make it simple and practical, it seems to make it easier to actually go ahead and do it. So one strategy I have found that works well is I plan for 5 days, and then the weekends, I kind of know that's where I'm going to be a little bit more flexible, because I don't know exactly what's going to happen on weekends or what we might end up doing. And sometimes 5 seems a better starting place than maybe doing all 7. But again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever works best for you. I also like to do like this plan up here, like the first one of looking at the types of protein: beef, chicken, pork, fish, and beans. I like to do that because then I know I'm getting a nice variety of different types of protein sources. It's not all, one type. And that variety is really important for, like Kelly talked about with that nutrition. So then I have that up on top, and then I just go in and I fill in my entrees, and then I have a basic menu plan done. I also included this one because it's sometimes fun to do things a little bit different. Maybe going with a theme like Meatless Monday, breakfast for lunch, a variety of different things that you can do to kind of just make that menu planning a little bit easier. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of some other people I mentioned too, like the leftovers or planned overs, the making once and eating twice. There's a couple different ways that we can look at doing this. The first is really just using those leftovers. If you have extra foods, making sure that you're actually using those. So if you have extra, again, like that chicken Parmesan, how are you making sure that you're going to use that in the next day or two so that you don't end up throwing it away? Maybe bring it for lunch. I do a lot of training with childcare providers, and it was really neat. One childcare provider said that she kind of gets to the point in the week where they have a lot of different things, and she calls it their special picnic meal. And that way, everyone kind of chooses what they want based on the leftovers. We kind of call that fend for yourself night. And that's just our good way of kind of going through the refrigerator and using up all those things that we don't have enough of it to serve everybody. But if everybody takes the 1 or 2 servings that's left, that really does help. And then we don't end up throwing it away. So again, just really thinking about how you're using those leftovers and not just putting it in the container only to throw it out later. Another thing about making once and eating twice is to be very thoughtful about what you're making and how you're going to use it again. For example, tonight we are having just some roasted chicken, and that's something we're going to eat tonight. We're just going to, slice it up and have, chicken, hot chicken. And then what I plan to do with that is I will take the remaining off the bone because it's a whole chicken that we're roasting tonight. And then I plan to make chicken dumpling soup probably like on Saturday, just because that's something we really like. We don't eat the whole chicken right away. And again, that's going to give me another meal out of that. And using those whole chickens is also another place where you can save quite a bit of money compared to maybe just buying like chicken breasts or the pieces that are all cut up, because it gives you a little bit more to get those planned leftovers and so forth. And also typically the less something is processed, the less that it's going to cost you. Okay. That being said, if you end up, if you're just 1 or 2 people, or if you just really don't like having to deal with the leftovers or taking it off the bone and you end up throwing a lot of it away, then you are better off going with already those pre-cut chicken pieces or poultry pieces. So again, you really have to find what works best for you and what's going to actually reduce the most waste for you. So also with this, if you are planning to freeze, Kelly?
I was just going to say this weekend I made mashed potatoes and carrots, and I made more than I had planned intentionally because tonight for supper I'm making shepherd's pie with what was left over potatoes. So just that kind of reinforcing that whole planning ahead.
That sounds really good. I have to come over to your house tonight. Be good. And then when you are doing the make once, eat twice, really pay attention to what type of containers you're going to use. If you are planning to just do leftover that you're going to use fairly soon, try and find a clear color container versus an opaque one that you can't see. Because if you can see what's in the container, you're more apt to like, oh, this is the broccoli I had left over. I'm going to pull that out. So that's very helpful. If it's something that you're going to freeze, make sure you're using some freezer type containers. Glass works well. You can also get the plastic bags that are freezer bags. What you want to avoid doing is just taking a generic sandwich bag and putting your leftovers in there, because it doesn't protect it from the cold factors and the moisture, and you're going to get freezer burn much more quickly, and then you're going to have to throw it out. Not because it's unsafe, but the quality of the product is really going to go down. And if it doesn't taste good, you're not going to want to eat it. So again, those containers and also that storage time that we're going to send out to you is important for that. Next slide. Okay, so getting back to the basics. And again, as I talk about this piece, you have to kind of keep in mind what works best for you, as I've mentioned before. If you're a very busy person, getting too basic might be hard for you. And you might say, I really value having some of those conveniences. But since this webinar today is really about saving money, it's important to remember that, like I mentioned before, the more something is processed or the more convenient it is, typically there's more labor involved in that, more processing, that is going to increase the cost of that item. And I know I recently read an article this week where it was talking about some of the different things related to the food shortage. And there were certain companies that are kind of starting to tell consumers that we're not going to be putting out as many of our specialty items. We're just kind of going to stick to more of our core brands so that they can dedicate their labor and their product that they do have to make those core brands versus a lot of maybe some of their more convenient type items. So again, just something to keep in mind that might kind of drive some of our getting back to the basics, just simply because we might not have all the choices that maybe we had, 2 years ago. So when we talk about getting back to the basics, we're talking about getting things such as your rice, your beans, your lentils. Those are very inexpensive and have, and let me rephrase that. Typically they have been inexpensive, but they also too are starting to increase in price. But relatively speaking, for protein choices, they tend to be a little bit lower. But having those things that you can quickly and easily do yourself is going to save you money. So for example, instead of buying a flavored rice packet, you can just buy a regular rice packet, and that's going to help save you some money. The nicer thing too about some of these basic foods, you can buy them in bulk, and that's going to save you money. The more volume you buy typically, the less it's going to cost you per serving. And then finally, with some of those basics, just really kind of planning ahead and utilizing the refrigerator and the freezer to help plan meals when you're short on time. That's going to help. And just maybe doing some pre-prep if you have some extra time on the weekends of, cutting up some of those vegetables that you can cut up yourself. I personally don't use a lot of the pre-cut vegetables that are in the grocery store, because that's a place where you can typically find costs go up quite significantly. So again, if you can have the time, really take and cut those vegetables yourself instead of, buying the things that are pre-cut. Again, I just like to really emphasize that it's what works best for you, but a place you can save quite a bit of money. Okay, next slide. So getting ready to shop. And again, a lot of these things are things I'm sure many of you have heard over and over again, but it's just nice to kind of hear it again. And hopefully it kind of helps you to think more about it and be more intentional about doing it, because a lot of times we're in a hurry and you don't really take that time that you might really need to get to shop, because you need time to do some menu planning. And then when you're actually ready to do some shopping, that's when you should be kind of going through what you already have in your cupboards, in your freezer. It doesn't have to be a long process, but just what you can do is just open each of your cupboards where you have like some of your staple items and like, oh, that's right, I'm getting low on flour, or I need some more Cheerios. Just making sure that you have those things that you want. So checking that inventory. So that's also going to help you when you are in the store and maybe you're like, oh, do I have this or don't I have it? And then you can say, if you have your shopping list, you'll know that, yep, I have that at home. So it's not on my list. So that must mean I have it. Okay, next slide. Okay. Getting ready to shop and checking those sales flyers. And especially now, it's getting to be more important to look at those flyers, because food prices are fluctuating, quite a bit or continuing to rise quite quickly. One thing I've noticed in shopping ads is that you kind of find that your stores typically have certain products that go on sale. Like there's one product I buy and I pretty much know every 3 weeks it's going to be on sale. I'm finding those are getting stretched out now. The product that I'm thinking about is finally in the sales ad this week, but I think it's been probably 6 weeks instead of the 5. So really checking those and knowing that those things are even going to change a little bit. So I'm thinking I might buy a little bit more because it might be longer before that ad comes out in the sale flyer again. Also comparing different stores and finding, maybe there's better deals at one store. Like Kelly mentioned, she has about 2 she typically shops at. The thing you want to be careful of is, again, looking at your time. Some people like to go to all the different stores and get the deals at each one. If that works for you, great. But time also costs money. So if you're spending too much time going to all the different stores, then that isn't helpful either. Digital coupons are also an option. Not just looking at your sale ads now. Most grocery stores have their online presence in an app. I know one person that I know, she said, so as she's waiting for her kids, she just scrolls through the grocery store app, and that's when she'll put them into her, wallet so that she can use them when it comes time to check out. So again, that's just an option. One thing to be careful of though, when you are using coupons, is making sure that it's a product that you are going to use. If it is a coupon for maybe, let's say, a higher priced item, then you sometimes are still better off getting maybe the brand that you typically like or the store brand versus using the coupon just to say use the coupon. So just again, keep that in mind. Also organizing that shopping list. The biggest thing about that is just, it's going to save you a lot of time in the grocery store. It's going to help you get in and out more quickly, and it's going to prevent you from doing a lot of back and forth. So again, it's a money saving, but also a time saving one. Okay, next slide. As Kelly had mentioned, remember your shopping list. Some strategies that work well there. There's several apps out there now. Taking a photo of your shopping list, that is also something that you can do in case you would actually forget it. Shopping the outside of the grocery store, that's typically where you find your foods that are more of, like we talked about, your basic foods, your fruits, your vegetables that are more of your fresh produce, your milks, your breads on the outside. Oftentimes the more convenient foods are on the inner aisles. You don't have to totally avoid those inner aisles because there's still a lot of really low cost, healthy food options in there. You know, if you think of canned beans, canned tomatoes, your pastas. So not that you're totally going to avoid those, but trying to, again, stick for more of those whole foods maybe versus the pasta dishes that are already kind of pre-cooked and pre-made, because that's going to add your cost up. Okay. Also being aware of just some of the different sales tactics. A lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, sometimes on the end caps, they might have a really good deal, but then you discover that it was the same price as maybe the regular one. So just being aware of some of those different things is important too. And then again, shopping the aisles where your foods are that you have on your shopping list. So next slide. Okay. Just a couple other kind of more savvy things to keep in mind. Specials might not always be the best buy. Again, if it is a certain brand label that tends to be a higher cost one, it might be on a special, but it still might be more expensive than maybe a brand that you really like or the store brand. So again, I'm really kind of checking those things out and not just always grabbing the one that is there first. Watch the pricing strategies. For example, you have to be really careful. Sometimes it might be $3, $4, $5. And you sometimes have to read the small print. Sometimes it might be $3 for $5, but if you take one, it's going to be the same. I didn't do my math here. I'm going to say, we're going to change it to $3 for $6 so I can do quick math. You might grab one of the item and it's $2, okay? But then you have to be careful too, because sometimes you'll see $3 for $5, or in small print, it will say must buy 3. So maybe if you just buy one in that case, it might be $3 instead of the $2 if you bought all 3 of them. So really being aware of that. Also, you have to watch out for things that are, if you use the coupon or if you use the app, because if you just grab it and think, oh, it's, $5.99, and you don't see the print on the bottom that said must use coupon or must use sale ad, you're going to get charged the regular price. So again, just being aware of those things. Store brands, that is a really, really nice option. I would encourage you, if you don't like the store brand at one store, try something from a different store because it might taste a little bit different depending upon what their recipe formula is. So try that. And also packaging costs more. Again, with that convenience, the more convenient it is, the more packaging it typically has, and then the more the cost that is going to be. And again, I read something with the fuel prices going up, that even like the plastics that are used in packaging, that could start to go up, and then that could also increase our food costs. So it's just a kind of a crazy time for food right now. Next slide. Unit pricing, this is something I absolutely love. And it looks like this slide decided, there it comes. Just took a little bit on mine. This is probably my favorite thing to do in the grocery stores, to compare the unit price. So here you can see this is a close-up version of it. And so for this one, it's per ounce and it's 26 cents per ounce. So that is really helpful. And then if you want to go to the next slide, Kelly. We have a couple tips on this of how that unit pricing comes in really handy. It really helps you to compare those different brands of food. So you can say, oh, there's brand A, brand B, which one is cheaper per unit, especially if you like both brands, that really works well. Also the size of the same brand. So if you have a cereal that you like, really make sure you're comparing the unit price, because you might be grabbing the family size thinking that it's going to be the cheapest because of the largest volume. But this is probably the place I see the most discrepancy, is a lot of times your family size is actually more expensive than maybe like the medium size container. So it doesn't happen too often, but it does every once in a while. And then the different forms, it's a little harder with the unit prices to compare fresh, canned, and frozen, but you can kind of get a little bit of an idea. Another thing to keep in mind too is that how the package is designed. It might look like with yogurts, you might have 2 yogurts and you're thinking, oh, they look like they're about the same price if you just grab them off the shelf. But some products will actually design their container so that it holds less volume. It might be that it's straight down is what you see, But if you flip it over, it might be concave so that you're not actually filling it all the way to the bottom. They have that big hump in the middle, so you're not getting as much of the product with that. So that's where the unit pricing comes in really nice, because then you can easily see which one is the cheapest by the unit pricing. So, and that's something else I've also been seeing in the last few weeks is they're kind of predicting that companies will start to, in order to make it look like there's not the sticker shock, we might see that shrinking of packages even more again. So keep that in mind when you are shopping. So next slide. So just kind of a couple other smart shopping things. Just remember that it really does take time. Shop at off-peak times, that really helps. I've started shopping a certain evening and that works really well, but also learn when your store restocks items, because I've been shopping in the evening. I have learned there's a certain night I don't go shopping because the next morning is when they restock. So then especially a lot of those sale items are, you know, kind of picked over or cleared out. So that's important to keep in mind. Curb the I wants. Again, if you're really trying to save that money, stick to your list. That's important. And also trying not to buy those foods that aren't on your list. In regards to the list, one other thing I would just add is if you have other family members shopping for you, really be very clear on your list what you want, especially if it is an item that is on sale. I've had instances where I'll send another family member to go and get oranges that are on sale. You know, that's on the list. I'll just put down oranges, and then they come home with the wrong ones that we probably paid, you know, 2-3 times as much as what if they would have gotten the sale brand one. So now I know I'm very specific and I put it's on sale, and so they know to be watching for that. So yeah, now I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Mary. I'm just going to cover a few resources that are available. And the first one I want to talk about is the SNAP education. And so with the University of Minnesota Extension, we host the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP Ed. And our SNAP Ed educators work with individuals and families to really help them stretch their food dollar. They work with cooking. They work with support policy systems and environmental changes. And they really help to make the healthier choice the easier choice for most of our families in Minnesota. I know we have people from other states here on the webinar today, and other states will also have that SNAP Ed program. So be sure to look for it in your community. And our SNAP Ed educators work with all age groups. So some examples of some direct education that they may do. They might talk in more detail about menu planning and grocery shopping, work with cooking skills, and work on easy and tasty meals, keeping food safe, and some also fun ways to put activity into your day. A website that we have with the University of Minnesota is called Real Life Good Food. And this is a great site to get recipes, cooking tips, and physical activity ideas for healthier living. So please check out our Real Life Good Food, and we'll be sending this link to you after the webinar. We also have, with the University of Minnesota Extension, a 2-week menu kit. And sometimes it's just difficult to know, well, where do I even start with planning a menu? So this is a great place to go to just get some ideas. It's designed for two people, and it's a 14-day menu, but you can double it or make it for more individuals in your family as well. And it is really easy to adapt. It has the shopping list. It has 15 different recipes, and it really is something that can be beneficial to your family if you're wondering, where can I even go to start menu planning? So here are some examples. Here's an example of it. Here is the first week's menu. And so there might be things on this that you really don't care for. You can swap those out. And certainly if you've got any dietary concerns, again, consider that as well. So considering your food and your taste preferences are important. Here's the second week menu. And like I said, it can easily be substituted. So for example, if there's a vegetable that you don't care for, maybe carrots are not something that your family likes, you might substitute it with celery or some other vegetable. I really like the shopping list, and it's designed in a way that you can just check things off. You can check what you have in your cupboards already. So because you might already have some of those pantry staples like salt and pepper or flour. So check those off. You know you don't need to purchase those, but then you'll have the list that you can go through as you're going through the grocery store. They include non-perishable canned items and easy to store and access items. But you can swap them out for fresher things. So for example, frozen peas, you might have fresh peas, or you don't have fresh peas, maybe you have canned peas. You can easily substitute in that way. And we all need some inspiration sometimes, some different recipes to try. And so here you see 2 of the 15 recipes that are available in this 2-week menu. So I hope this gives you some ideas of some ways to save money and some resources that you can tap into. Now back over to Mary.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. And I just wanted to highlight a few other things related specifically kind of to our environment right now, that we're still kind of going through this pandemic. One of the, I don't want to say perks or highlights, or maybe a positive thing that has happened is that there is more online shopping. Online shopping was around prior to COVID-19. But it certainly had an increase after COVID-19, and especially with the changes in technology to make that easier. So online shopping is a very nice option for people. And for a lot of people, it saves them money because they do stick strictly to their list because someone else is doing the shopping for them. So that certainly helps too. Other people still prefer to do their own shopping because depending upon what grocery store you're going to, some grocery stores do have added fees to use their online services. So again, it's just really finding what works best for you. And sometimes you might choose to do online if you're really in a hurry. And then other times you might choose to go in if you have a little bit more time and want to save maybe some of those service fees. So again, nice option. Same with the pickup and delivery services. We're certainly seeing a lot more options in terms of the delivery services. You can also get the prepared meals meal kits that you can order online and have shipped to your house that have all the ingredients in them. Typically, it would be more expensive, per serving. However, if you use everything that is in your kit and you're not ending up with a lot of odds and ends, like you only needed 1 carrot and you end up throwing the rest of the package away that you bought at the grocery store, then it might make more sense for you to maybe explore some of those different meal kits if you're using it all. And if you're a person who ends up buying a lot of food items and then wasting them. So again, just finding what works best for you is important. Meat costs, those again are continuing to increase, and that's typically the higher cost food item in terms of what we're putting on our plate. So you might want to consider maybe stretching out some of your meat items a little bit with some others like pastas and things, or finding some lower cost meat alternatives, checking the manager's specials. That's always really helpful, seeing where some of those deals are. Someone else had mentioned shopping when they're on sale and buying in bulk and freezing. That's another really nice option. And again, exploring some of those bean options, canned meats, such as your tuna and salmon, are also good options. Substitutions, I think we've all become really good at substituting different things for recipes, just depending upon what is there. It's not like it was 2 years ago where you just knew if you were going to go to the store, everything was pretty much there. It was very rare that you didn't have everything in the store you needed. We're now definitely learning how to make substitutions. So if you do have to make a substitution, really kind of paying attention to if it's just a brand substitution, is it a lot more? Is it pretty similar in cost? Or if you have to buy something totally different, how is that going to impact your bottom line with that substitution? Or is it something that, maybe I'll go without, or maybe I'll switch up my menu this week because it's not available. Kelly talked about SNAP. Again, another positive point is now SNAP is accepted at some locations, such as Amazon, Walmart, and some grocery stores. So that makes it much more convenient for families that are using SNAP. WIC is also more easily used. And the schools and the food shelves are doing a variety of different things to really help people get the food that they need, especially again with these rising food costs. So next slide. I've talked about this several times, and so has Kelly, about that food waste. And it might not seem like this is a place you can save money, but it really is huge. If I was to say, I'm going to give you $1,500 extra a year for your grocery budget, people would be pretty excited about it. But actually, most people do have about $1,500 that they are just throwing away each year in terms of food waste. So again, really paying attention to what you're buying and making sure that you're using what you buy. You can also use some strategies. If you do overbuy some produce, you can wash it off and cut it up and put it in the freezer. I know I will take like leftover vegetables that I have. These are ones that I've cooked and maybe served and we didn't eat all the peas or carrots. I have a container in my freezer. I'll just dump them all in there. And then when it comes time to make soup, I just dump that in my soup, and then I have the vegetables that I'm using. So it might just be a, fourth of a cup here, fourth of a cup there, but by the time I get a couple meals, I have enough vegetables for a pot of soup. So using those strategies really works well too. And USDA has some nice ideas too on how to reduce food waste. So next slide. So that brings us to kind of the conclusion. Hopefully you've had a chance to get a few different ideas of some things that you can do to save money. Ms. Kelly mentioned earlier, this isn't something that's going to change overnight. We're going to continue to see these high food costs, and they are predicting that they're going to continue to rise. So I really encourage you after our webinar today to really write down, what are some of those strategies that you want to take some time to make sure that you really kind of try and do. Maybe you block off a little bit of time each week, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe it's just 15 minutes, quick plan that menu, make that shopping list, and then go grocery shopping. And those are things that are going to help you. So Kelly has put a link in the chat, which has an evaluation that just helps us know a little bit how we did today, and also gives you a chance to kind of put some ideas if you have something else that you would like to see a webinar on. And so next slide. So speaking of webinars, we have several other webinars coming up. We're part of the Center for Family Development at University of Minnesota Extension. So there's some webinars coming up. Some of them are in the Spanish language. We also have ones on supporting the needs of families and communities, and then a few more on how to save money, because we recognize that it's not just food that's going up in cost. There's lots of other places where we are seeing an increase of cost. And here's just a few more too. Identity theft, that's something definitely to be aware of. And then how we can really get to know our Minnesota community a little bit more. So in conclusion, we just have a couple different ways. Like Kelly said, we're going to email out a list of some of our different resources. And you can also always connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We have a variety of different resources that you can use to connect with us. So thanks for joining us today. I hope you found it helpful. We have some contact information here. If you ever have any questions, feel free to send us an email, and we will information that you are looking for. So anything else that you wanted to add, Kelly?
No, I think everything was covered, and I'm a prime example of saving money at the grocery store using that online feature. I've been using it for the last 18 months during COVID, and I've really enjoyed it, and it really cuts down the purchasing at the store, and it's something I've really enjoyed doing. So that's all.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.